All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Full Ride with Matt Green, Fellow University of North Georgia alumni. Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back on this glorious Sunday. Monday morning for our pod listeners.
Absolutely. It's spoopy. We got some rain, getting a little bit chilly. The leaves are orange and wet and on the ground. It's very nice today. My kind of day. We haven't gotten a lot of rain. We're in a drought here in East Tennessee, and it's driven me mad because I need at least 2 to 3 rainy days a week to keep me level. I'm a big rainy day guy.
Big rainy day guy, he says. Oh man, you just totally threw me off with that. What was I about to ask you? You got a Halloween costume?
My wife has asked me all the different things that she was going to get me to be, and I don't know, man. I have not dressed up for Halloween in over a decade at least. If I'm 31, yeah. I mean, I really think it was like 9th, 10th grade max of when I last actually dressed up for Halloween. I'm not a dress up guy, but what's weird is that I love Halloween. I love October. It's the best month of the year. Not up for debate. And it's a beautiful time, but I don't like dressing up. I've never been a big costume guy. I'm not a cosplay guy. I'm not someone who likes to put on the Jack Sparrow attire or go full P. Diddy Combs and wear the Joker attire and spend like hours putting on face paint or doing this, that, and the other.
It's amount of effort for
sure. Yeah, it's just not for me, man. I don't know. What about you? Does Tori make you dress up? Are you going to be something tomorrow? Did you do something this weekend?
No, but my office did like a little Halloween type thing, and I basically had like an impromptu costume that actually turned out pretty solid because it was Thursday, so I was rocking the Georgia polo.
I thought you were going to say you were 3-hole punch Matt.
I was rocking the Georgia polo, and we have the headsets at work, in the cubicle, and so just put on the headset, put it in my pocket there, carried around a clipboard, so I just looked like a football coach. So it was a quality impromptu costume, but no, I'm not necessarily a big Halloween guy. I've definitely had my fair share of Halloween. Like if I'm gonna go to a costume party, like I'll get into it. But I mean, if I don't get invited to a costume party a particular year, it's like I probably won't have a Halloween costume.
Are you gonna have the light on and divvy out candy tomorrow night, or are you one of those people who turn the light off and pretend you're not home?
That's a good question. Last year, I mean, we definitely had candy, and I don't know if we got one trick-or-treater.
Oh, did they hear about you using the old man to cut your grass in the neighborhood? The neighborhood's like, let's just not.
That's probably what it was. Yeah, just avoid that house.
I need to send you the video. There's a funny video I sent in the family group chat and everything else, but the Uber Eats plane that drops off a Subway sandwich and like on a farm and just hits this old guy and he just goes down, and yeah, it's an incredible video. But that's Matt Green with his yard where he just has the retirees come out of retirement to keep his HOA happy.
Actually, since I got the riding lawnmower, it's changed the game. Now I do it all myself. Really, it's a Murray. I call it the Aaron Murray, the riding lawnmower. That's the brand. A little plug there for Murray.
Yeah, not a sponsor. Could be.
But yeah, it's a quality machine.
There you go. I cannot wait to be a riding lawnmower person, but have the acreage to do it. I miss that, like cutting the grass and then just doing the father old man stare at the yard and look at the job well done and just be like, yeah, that's my yard.
Yeah, you got to crack open a cold one and be like, hey, Tori, come check out the edge. You like that edge, right? You gotta admire your work.
You know what I admire, Matt Green?
New edger and really change the game.
Or do you know what I'm going to admire on Tuesday?
What's that?
The Tennessee Volunteers being number 1 in the college football playoff rankings.
Coming in hot.
There's no debate. I think that one's actually locked up. I think Tennessee being number 1 in the college football playoff rankings is done. I don't see
I
a
think
path.
so.
Yeah, I think there's no path for them not to be number 1 in the CFP first rankings.
They are now number 2, tied for number 2, and
more first place votes than Ohio State, though.
And I feel like that's the tiebreaker, right? That puts they should be 2. Ohio State should be 3. But
well, I was gonna say, what are they gonna do on Saturday? Are they just gonna list for the 2 different games, like number 2 Ohio State and number 2 Tennessee?
I'm sure they will, because I think that's how they did it with Wake Forest and Wake Forest and USC this past week were both tied at number 10.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be once the playoff rankings are set, that's all they want to care. That's the ranking next to everybody. It's just the playoff ranking.
But so, I'm saying on TV, they don't put that up, do they?
I think that's what everyone uses from that point on. It's like, that's really the only rankings that matter.
So you think CBS will have number 1 Tennessee, number 2 Georgia on CBS on Saturday?
If that is indeed the ranking. I don't know if I see it that way. I think, do we want to give our top 6 right now?
I think we should do it. Let's do our CFP, because no one cares. Like you said, no one cares what the AP poll anymore. It's now CFP season. So how would you do it? Who is your top 6, right? How about this? We'll first do what we think it's going to be, and then we'll do what we would do if we were in charge of the committee. So first, do your top 6 of what you guess it's going to be on Tuesday.
Okay, so my guess is I think it's going to be Georgia number 1, Ohio State 2, Tennessee 3, Michigan 4, Clemson 5, and TCU 6. But where I differ is I would go Georgia number 1, Tennessee. Wait, I said Ohio State 2 the first time, right? Yeah, I would put Tennessee 2.
Wait, hold on. Let me so we don't get it confused. So we'll just do the ones that you're saying 1 Georgia that you think that the committee will have on Tuesday. You think it's gonna be 1 Georgia, 2 Ohio State, 3 Tennessee, 4 who?
Michigan.
Okay. 5 Clemson.
5 Clemson.
6 TCU. Okay. I think it's gonna be on Tuesday 1 Tennessee, 2 Georgia, 3 Ohio State, 4 Michigan. I think it's going to be 5 Clemson, and then 6 Alabama. But here's my October surprise for you guys. I could see Alabama being ahead of both Clemson and even Michigan in the first CFP.
No, not Michigan, but I could definitely see them being ahead of TCU and Clemson.
TCU is not going to get any love. I don't think TCU has a chance. Like Oregon, I think is going to be ahead of them. I think USC is maybe going to be ahead of them.
Resume is solid. I mean, they have wins over Kansas State and Oklahoma State at this point. Like
41-31 over West Virginia. Slow starters. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of buy-in from the committee.
Mean, if you have Tennessee number 1, that does change. I mean, that's obviously you view them as the best team in the country. So losing to them by 3 points on the road, you could justify them being 4 or 5 in the country. And it's Alabama. We all know it's Alabama. So yeah, I could see them being ahead of Clemson and TCU, but not Michigan, because they've been dominant.
I'm not picking them. I'm just saying that's like the wild card. Is I'm ready for folks to get upset about where Bama is going to be placed, because I think Bama is going to be higher than maybe.
I think you're right. I think that's a good point. I didn't have them in my top 6, but I bet you they probably will be. And then I personally would have Ohio State at 3. I just don't think the committee is going to have them that low. I could even see them being number 1.
Well, do your 1 through 6 of what you would do personally.
My number 1 would be Georgia. Just looking at them, just because of the offensively and defensively, if you look at resumes with Georgia and Tennessee, like obviously the win over Alabama is like one of the best wins, maybe the best win in college football this year, but it is also a 3-point win at home. Like it's over a great team, but we've seen Alabama play a lot of close games with a lot of teams this year, so it like with an Arkansas, with a Texas A&M, so with a Texas. So it's hard to quantify, like, yeah, is this Alabama that's the 4th best team in the country, or is this Alabama who's more like a borderline top 10 team. It's hard to say. And then you have Georgia with wins over like a South Carolina doesn't look very good right now. It is a road a blowout win on the road, but the Oregon win, I mean, each week, like Oregon is showing they look like the best team in the Pac-12, and the way Georgia just dominated them, it's hard to say the Tennessee win over Alabama is that much better than Georgia's win over Oregon, simply because of, I mean, they won by 46 points, right? Like they just dominated this team that's scoring like 45 points a game. And then obviously Georgia, second in the country, giving up like 9 points a game right now. I think that's the biggest difference to me with Georgia and Tennessee, because Georgia's got a top 10 offense. Maybe, I mean, I think they're 8th in the country in scoring offense. I think they're even top 5 in terms of total offense per game. So like they're not right there with Tennessee, because Tennessee just has a truly just special dynamic offense, but Georgia still has a very dominant offense that we saw the turnovers, but we'll get to them, what they did this week. But so Georgia's offense has been great, and the fact that their defense has been one of the best in the country. I think that's what separates Georgia and Tennessee for me. So I personally would have Tennessee number 2 and Ohio State 3. It feels like the committee not wanting the whole SEC bias kind of in their head. They're going to have Georgia and Tennessee at 1 and 3, in my opinion, and Ohio State will be like in the top 2 most likely, and then probably Michigan at 4. I think Michigan at 4 has kind of solidified themselves because they've looked more dominant than Clemson. And honestly, Clemson's getting probably slept on as well, because we're all bashing the ACC and Wake Forest. Obviously, we'll get to them later, but they looked awful. We saw what they did against Clemson, and now Syracuse dropping a week after the loss against Clemson, and NC State hasn't looked like what we thought they were going to be. Like, it's hard to really evaluate Clemson's schedule, and they've had some close games. Michigan's pretty much just been dominant each week. So I think they're a solid spot ahead of Clemson. But TCU honestly might have a better resume than both of them. I feel like the Big 12 is just a really good conference. And I mean, TCU, like, we're all talking about Tennessee's offense, but TCU is right up there with them in terms of just how balanced they are throwing, passing and running too. Like, I think TCU is kind of getting slept on. And then I'm probably sleeping on Alabama too, because I mean, they're Alabama, and it wouldn't surprise anybody if they just ran the table from here on out and won it all. So I don't know. I currently have Alabama outside the top 6 though.
Interesting. It's funny because I'm like, if you had a gun to anyone's head of like, do you really believe that Alabama is not one of the 6 best teams in the country right now? I think everyone would agree. No, they're one of the 6 best teams in the country. Like, there's no path for them not being one of the 6 best, because like when you think about it on a neutral field, Bama versus TCU, Bama versus Oregon, Bama versus Clemson, Bama versus Michigan. We all know they're favored in every one of those games on a neutral site. Some of them by double digits.
But there's a difference between the power ranking and the Vegas odds, and just what the sport. It's like we have to keep track of like why the polls exist the way they do. It's why like number 5 loses to number 2 by 1 touchdown. And it's like, okay, now they're going to be number 9. It's like, are they number 9, or are your rankings perfect and they're a touchdown worse than the team that's 3 spots higher than them? So it's just like the rankings are kind of an arbitrary thing, but it's like you just have to. This is how the rankings in college football have always.
But who actually believes that Alabama is not better than Michigan and Clemson? Who actually believes that to their core? Like, they have this it's just deep in their core that they're better.
No, I know what you mean, but it's very difficult.
Alabama's only loss is an unbelievable 52-49 on the road, crazy number 1 offense in the country loss. And I mean, they were right there. Like, it's unbelievable the way Tennessee won that game. I think people have gone way too far the other way with Alabama.
Without a doubt. And they missed the field goal right before. I mean, They could have won the game, but it's just the college football rankings. This is how they exist, and it's most.
But what I'm saying is, this is your opportunity. These are your top 6. Like, this is your opportunity to do your top 6.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Cause it's this combination of doing the best teams versus most deserving teams. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you go back to 2018, when there was the conversation about Georgia and Oklahoma, it's like Alabama was just so head and shoulders the number 1. They were talking about that being like the greatest team in SEC history at that point. To his first year as the starter, just scored 50 points a game on everybody. And clearly Georgia at number 4 versus Alabama being 1 was like a 14, 15-point dog in that game, I think. And Georgia dominated most of the game, led for like 3.5 quarters, and then lost at the end. So it's like you came out of this game obviously thinking Georgia was better than you previously did, but we have to move them from 4 to 5 in our rankings because of most deserving and the Big 12 champion, that sort of thing. So it's like there's just a formula that goes with the rankings. And right now TCU is undefeated playing a Big 12 schedule. Clemson's undefeated playing an ACC schedule. They go ahead of the team with 1 loss, I feel like, at this point. Like Alabama's still number 7, and that's the thing is Alabama, there's a perception of what Alabama is, and in 2022 they just haven't necessarily just dominated everyone they've played. They've played a lot of close games, and I don't know, I think we're all wondering LSU coming up, Ole Miss coming up. Like those are some teams that can, both on the road, like those are some teams that could give them some problems. We've seen them on the road. So there's the perception that is Alabama and what the Vegas odds makers are going to do and what the public is going to, how the public is going to bet on Alabama. So that like lays the lines, but it doesn't necessarily mean they deserve to be ranked higher than a team like Clemson or TCU to this point.
That's fair. So you're going to like mine 1 through 6. I think it's 1 Tennessee, 2 Georgia, 3 Alabama.
Oh,
yes. Alabama.
Wow.
I'm doing my playoff, like who I think are the top 6 teams in the country right now and how I would see them in based on what I've seen to this point in the year. I would do 1 Tennessee, 2 Georgia, 3 Bama, 4, you ready for this? Michigan, 5 Ohio State, 6 TCU. Clemson is not one of the 6 best teams in the country. We need to move on from this. We need to move on from the DJ Uiagalelei time. We need to move on from Clemson winning a playoff game. We have to move on from just being constricted by the Clemson aura of never losing a home game, never losing these regular season games. They just keep surviving just barely. This is not an elite football team. This is not a team that's running the college football playoff gauntlet. TCU with that offense, do we think they're not better than Clemson right now? What more does TCU have to do? I think TCU is right. Like that's the fun conversation is what that matchup looks like on a neutral side. I would like to see TCU's offense versus Clemson's defense on a neutral field. But right now I lean TCU.
Yeah, if I didn't make that clear, I did have TCU 5, Clemson 6.
Yeah. I struggled the most with like Michigan and Ohio State, but I am leaning Matt Green on October 31st because we're recording this now past the midnight hour. I am leaning spooky season towards the Michigan Wolverines being better than Ohio State right now. I think I'm leaning more and more in that direction to this point. I've been more impressed of their overall body of work. I understand the schedule early on. I feel like Michigan just has a much better handle on who they are. And we'll get into Marvin Harrison, who showed out this weekend. But, I mean, there's just something that feels a little off with Ohio State. Just something feels a little off. And we'll see if it ultimately matters. But I don't know. I think it's a little thing to monitor is Michigan. I mean, they have to go and beat them in Columbus this time. But I don't know. That's my top 6. Is it spicy?
That's spicy, all right. And yeah, just looking at Ohio State's schedule, like, I mean, man, this is, I know it's not necessarily their fault, but this is awful. Like, you got a down Wisconsin, a down Iowa. Honestly, a year where you get the Big Ten East and you got Wisconsin and Iowa from the West, that's probably one of the tougher Big Ten schedules. And you play Notre Dame at a conference. Notre Dame's just not a good team. Like, Ohio State's defense looked good in that game, but wasn't necessarily a dominating performance by any means. And then it's like you had Penn State, and now 3 weeks, Northwestern, Indiana, Maryland, and then we got the Michigan game. Is that a 12-game season, or is that a 2-game season in 13 weeks? Like, it's just kind of crazy. So Ohio State, it's so hard to evaluate them because so many times they don't play that difficult of a schedule, which is why it seems like, but this is a pre-Ryan Day thing too. Like under Urban Meyer, they seem to always have that one lapse a year against inexplicably against Iowa or Purdue or whoever. under Ryan Day, they haven't really done that. They just taken care of business. I mean, Michigan was a playoff team, so that was the only loss. Wait, they lose. Oh, they lost to Oregon as well, and that's another really good team. Not necessarily just a inexplicable loss or anything, but I just assume both of these teams are going to be undefeated when they meet on whatever that is, November 26th. And I mean, that's basically a semifinal. I mean, who are they going to get from the West? Minnesota at this point?
Wait, no, they're getting Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah, they're going to get Illinois.
Illinois is looking solid for sure. So
we've done this before, though.
Well,
the Big Ten West. They're this one scrappy Wisconsin. They're going to
exactly, and the rankings will work there, and it'll be the number 9 by the time the Big Ten championship works out. Like,
Iowa had the number 2 scoring defense going into the Michigan Big Ten title game last year, and Michigan just obliterated them off the face of the earth. If Michigan or Ohio State gets Illinois, like Illinois fans, and look,
Wisconsin. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, Illinois is awesome. It's a great story, but they're getting blown off the face of the earth in the Big Ten title game against either Michigan or Ohio State. We don't have to pretend. Like, we don't have to live in this false reality.
I mean, Northwestern, played them super close that year with Fields. It's like, I don't know. Like, Wisconsin has had their
2020 was weird.
Like 12-0
reasons, and that was one of them.
Iowa was like top 4 one year in the Big Ten championship a few years ago, but it's I don't know, when was the last Big Ten West to win the Big Ten?
It had to be Wisconsin.
Probably Russell Wilson days or something like that. Maybe not that long ago.
It had to be Wisconsin. I just don't know which year it was. I know it wasn't Iowa. I know it wasn't like a Purdue or Northwestern.
Yeah, that's got to be 2020.
Was it one of maybe the Jack Cones years?
Earliest.
Yeah. I don't know.
Penn State's got one in there, and then just a bunch of Ohio State, one Michigan.
Yeah.
I guess the Michigan State was in there a couple times too, so I think it's been a while.
Speaking of Michigan State, 4 players suspended for that brawl in the Michigan tunnel on Saturday evening. Not a good look across the board. That was pretty jarring, Matt Green, to actually see that that happened. And
that was violence.
I mean, that was assault. Like, I wonder if charges are coming, because I know the police are investigating. Like, they're just suspended. I mean, based on what we saw in the video, this is not good if you're one of those Michigan State kids on video. It's bad. And the lack of awareness to not realize that this is wrong. And I mean, just not even in just no concept of your surroundings whatsoever. Just they're stupid. And then there is that level of stupidity. Like, we talk about players who hit each other with the helmet on, like punch somebody with another helmet in the middle of a game or something. And you're like, why are you punching up? Punching and jumping another team while you're walking into the same tunnel with reporters and cameras everywhere, thinking that was not going to get picked up by anybody is oof. I don't know. This that was one of the more wild things I've ever seen. So I hope the Michigan player, I don't remember who it was by name, who got stomped in that one, but hope he's going to be okay, because that was ugly. And I wonder what this means, because James Franklin complained about the one team tunnel a few weeks ago. We obviously had the dust up. Yeah, remember, because like they had a dust up, like the halftime dust up, and then Michigan proceeded to blow them out in the second half. Ohio State, Michigan last year, they had the dust up at halftime. Michigan proceeds to blow them out. Maybe that's why Michigan doesn't want to get the 2 tunnels. It's like, it's really working for us, actually. We come out really hot and ready to go when we have to come out together to start the second half and get in each other's faces. So that's going to stay. But,
there's something cool about it.
There is something cool about it, but goodness gracious, that was rough. Hugh Freeze got.
Have we come up with like a catchy name for it? Like the Malice at the Palace. Like, is it something at the big house? Can we come up with something? That's your assignment for the week.
I'm not a headline guy. That's one of the things. If I ever get an intern to write headlines for these posts, headlines for my articles like that, I don't have that gift. I'm not good at the whole headline thing. That's not my jam, unfortunately. Hugh Freeze signed a long-term extension with Liberty, and I don't know what that means. He's having a great year again. He's on like quarterback number 3
They're ranked.
Yeah, I mean, he's just Hugh Freeze. It's never been about the coach. The dude knows offense. The dude knows how to coach. But I think if you're an Auburn fan, you're wondering. It's like I wonder what his buyout is to bring him in, because I mean that if you can't get Lane Kiffin, I think Hugh Freeze is probably your number one option. But
I feel like Hugh Freeze has Auburn written all over him.
right?
He just seems, I don't know. He's got to start with, he's got the Alabama recipe. Like, this guy knows how to beat Alabama. That's my resume. Slam it on the table. 2014, 2015 Alabama games. That's my resume, sir.
I'm curious to see if he sticks around long term, because he's been on the rehab tour up there with his image and everything like that to hide away, and for everything that happened back at Ole Miss to be long and forgotten. And he just keeps winning games and keeps, I mean, he has turned Liberty into a premier G5 school on the football field. But I am curious how long he ultimately stays away, because he just doesn't strike me as someone who doesn't want to get back and play big time college football again. And we're not to say that Liberty is not big time football, but there's obviously a ceiling. And if he ever wants to win a national title, he's going to have to jump back.
However, this 12-team playoff era, I think this could potentially change everything in terms of if there's playoff access from other conferences that aren't traditional Power 5 conferences, like those jobs now become more attractive than the 7th or 8th or 9th best job in the SEC, right? Like, or the 10th best job in the SEC. Like, yeah, the money might be better, but I could actually get into the playoff. I could, like create like we've seen basketball programs like the Butlers, like the Gonzagas. Like, you don't necessarily need to be in those big conferences to have a perennial contender. So I don't know. I think the playoff could really change. Like when we were evaluating what UCF and like Auburn were like with Gus Malzahn like a year ago. I think when it comes to like which one can make the playoff better, like it's kind of hard when you start comparing them that way. So I would have to think if the SEC comes knocking, Hugh Freeze is gonna jump ship at whatever SEC money he can get. But I don't know, like with the transfer portal and NIL and all that, like it kind of changes the game. Like you just had a first, second round talent at quarterback come through Liberty. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I think the part about like getting in and having a seat at the table matters, but ultimately you still can't run the gauntlet. So it's like nothing really changes with them getting in. Like, yeah, you can raise the banner that we made the playoff and that we may have upset somebody, but Liberty's not rolling off.
Mason got to the Final Four, sir.
We both know college football doesn't work like that.
Loyola Chicago.
So you heard it here first. Matt Green wants Mount Union in there, or Mount Vernon. What's the FCS 3? He wants the Blue Raiders. Is that what they are?
Wisconsin Whitewater.
Yeah, he wants them in there, and he wants to see what happens. Like, it's any given Saturday. You never know. They could walk into the big house and upset Michigan, and then the following week go to Tuscaloosa, beat the Tide. Like, that's how college football works.
Hey, in 2006, the Boise State Broncos knocked off the Big 12 champion Oklahoma Sooners. All right, sir.
Speaking of the Boise State Broncos,
you never know.
Undefeated in the Mountain West, and like Hank Bachmeier like quit the team mid-season. OC got fired, and Andy Avalos got them rolling. One loss. Shout out to the Broncos. They're quietly figuring it all out up there in Boise. He's gonna be an interesting portal name to watch this winter. He was, I think, the highest recruited quarterback Boise's ever gotten. Well, Matt Green. One final thing. Vince Dooley, legendary Georgia football coach, passed away this past week at the age, I believe, 90, correct?
That is correct.
I learned my dad had a class with her at Georgia, or his daughter, excuse me, at Georgia in accounting. Said she was super nice. I never met Vince Dooley personally, so I can't speak to him personally, but by all accounts, classy dude. Loved Georgia, and won a national title. Great for a long time. Great AD, which is a rare feat to be able to do both jobs. extremely well, but he was able to do it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the passing of Vince Dooley? What's your favorite Vince Dooley moment?
Ooh, well, obviously Vince Dooley was a little ahead of my time, so it's I can't speak personally to him being the UGA head coach, but everyone loved Vince Dooley. He's just the classic no nonsense, the all shucks type of coach. Like every game we like approach every opponent like they were the same, regardless if they're like the worst team on the schedule. Like, oh, they can do some things. They might could beat us. Like, kind of talk everybody up like that. But yeah, man, I know Tori had some sort of experience with Vince Dooley like a few years ago at some function. She had him like sign a book and stuff. But everyone I've heard of that met Vince Dooley say he was a super nice guy. So shout out to a hashtag damn good dog, Vince Dooley, for sure.
There you go.
Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium.
Absolutely. Matt Green, is it time for our recap show? You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. You want me to hit you with the with the hardcore numbers here?
I don't 100% know how I did, so yes, please do so.
Was not necessarily your best week on the
no.
season, so I did make up a little ground against the spread. Not overall, unfortunately, but
Okay.
So you went 7-4 overall for the third straight week. Both of us went 7-4 overall. Actually, what is that? 7 of the last 8 weeks you have gone 7-4. That's like a baseball team. Just take 2 out of 3 every series. You look up at the end of the year, you'll be where you want to be.
It makes it nearly impossible for you to play catch up.
Without a doubt. So I've gone 7-4, 3 consecutive weeks as well. You went 4-6-1 against the spread this week. Georgia Bulldogs, 22-point favorite, winning by exactly 22. I don't know, public service announcement, whatever you want to call it, grinds my gears. Every spread should be a half point. We need a hook on every single line. None of these ties. Who wants a tie? It's garbage.
That's fair.
Grinds my gears. So you were 4-6-1 against the spread. I was 6-4-1 against the spread. So made up a couple games there. So you guys still have a 4-game lead against the spread. You were 51-48-3 to my 47-52-3. And then overall, you were 73-29 to my 63-39. So you got a solid 10-game lead here with, what is this, 4 more weeks and conference championship, 5 more weeks. So yeah, and then Zeus this week, Texas A&M, Aggies home dog of the week. Couldn't quite get it done. Although was there another home dog that we picked was correct? No, I guess
you gave him a double one last week. I don't think this past week you gave him 2.
We did pick Penn State to cover as a home dog, but Kansas State I guess was actually favored by the end of it. But yeah, so unfortunately Zeus took the loss, so he's at 5-5 on the season. So we'll see if he can bounce back. Week 10. We wait all year for football season, and it's about to be week 10. It's wild.
It is. It moves on, but it's not like college football is over. We still got, like, this is the stretch run of the next month, and this is going to be fun. Like, you got 4 Saturdays in a row where it's just do or die time. We're now college football, like I tell folks, is like Game of Thrones. It's very different than the pros in a lot of ways, but it's a lot of world building, and it's not fair. It's ugly. There's a lot of massacres, and a lot of houses try to rise up, and then they're just destroyed by the bigger houses. And sometimes those little houses surprise folks, but there is a wall in Alabama, a Georgia, or a Tennessee Volunteers that comes for them all. And the Tennessee Volunteers, as the best team in the country with the best resume in the country right now, they blow out the Kentucky Wildcats 44-9. No second half shenanigans that those dogs in Jacksonville dealt with. Just a scary scene in Jacksonville for Georgia fans, as they all took Twitter.com very, very nervous about the second half comeback from the Gators. And I was nice and cozy under my blanket watching touchdown after touchdown and Danico Slaughter laying the wood. And, we just, it was a pleasant, spooky evening as all of Twitter is just all in on the Vols, the pageantry, the fireworks, the looks, the uniforms, everything's coming up Tennessee orange. It's what a
Oh
time to be alive,
man.
Matt Green. We have the basketball team trolling the Kentucky fan base over when they got their rings. Tennessee saved the ring ceremony, the SEC title ring ceremony, for this game, just for the basketball team to be able to like wave and troll the Kentucky fans who made the trip to Neyland, because people forget Rick Barnes owns John Calipari. Matt Green, I think we have to start with the Vols, 44-6. And it's so funny that we take it for granted because it was a quiet 44 points. That's where Tennessee is at. Like their points per game went down like a little under a point for this performance this week. They were over 50 last week, and I think they were like 49 point something, but still number one in the country. And they stumbled into it. There was a moment where Heupel had to punt deep in Kentucky territory and took a delay game they didn't want to do. They missed a field goal badly, and Chase McGrath. Again, like I tell folks, it's unbelievable that he hit that one against Alabama. That's just based on what we've seen, the full body of work that continues to amaze me to this day, that thing sailed through the knuckleball, sailed through the uprights. But Tennessee kind of sleptwalk on offense. Cedric Tillman was back for this one. He was not himself, obviously, not really going deep. It wasn't that kind of game for him. Brew McCoy, he's like the most quiet receiver, where he'll just have 8 catches for 97 yards or 9 catches for 130, and it doesn't feel like it in the stat sheet. But they didn't run the ball particularly well. Jalen Wright averaged 10 yards to carry, but he didn't have nearly as many carries as Jabari Small, who didn't really break anything. Hendon Hooker didn't really have any big runs. It was just Jalen Hyatt. It was still Jalen Hyatt who broke Tennessee's scoring record with, 15 now, I think, touchdowns in the year. He was unguardable again, and just nobody has an answer for Jalen Hyatt out wide. When he is lined up behind Cedric Tillman in those slot positions. And he's a really, really hard player to cover. And the safeties got lost a couple times against in the Kentucky game, and it cost them dearly. But Dejon Terry was awesome, defensive line. And this was one of those interesting games for me, because this is the one what makes you believe a little bit more about Georgia, is the defense coming to play. And we have not seen that kind of defense from Tennessee all season long. And to keep, I understand Kentucky's offensive line's not great, but they really tormented Will Levis. Like, Will Levis was a turnover machine, making bad decisions. Like, the pressure was on. Like, Tennessee, Byron Young had a sack and a half. Guys were getting home. And that was the best defensive performance of the season for Tennessee. And I think that was more of the story, where I think if the offense plays at their normal pace and what they are normally able to do, they put up 60 at 70 maybe. Like, this was not a great offensive performance from Tennessee, and they still dropped 44, and it was just without breaking a sweat. But I said on the pod that I saw this game going the same way as the LSU game, and that was basically the case. But the offense was much better in the LSU game. It was more of the defense in this one, which came to play, and they're growing in confidence week over week. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Yeah, I think I agree in terms of I think the defense was the most impressive performance about this game to me for Tennessee. Obviously, the offense still put up 44 points, but it was Kentucky's just inability to do anything offensively, because I felt like in the first half, Kentucky really hung right there with Tennessee. The turning point was really that interception in the red zone that they were turned out to like midfield or something. Mm-hmm. Like that's a 7 points that Kentucky's got to put on the board, down 20-6 to stay in the game. And then when Tennessee was just able to steal 7 points right before the half, that blown coverage to make it 28-6, 27-6 going to the half, then it just felt like that's game over. Like this, but to have them 20 points, basically going into the half, like 30 seconds left in the half, like that's a quality 2 quarters. If you're Kentucky, you can think you can muster up more than 6 points against what's been a questionable defense most of the season. So Will Levis is just, how long are we going to keep doing this? He's not that guy. Like he was under a lot of pressure in this one, but he's not this first round pick that everyone makes him out to be. It's like, I think we talked about this before the season. Like the media, the pro scouts and everything are going to make us sound like Will Levis haters. He's just not that guy. He's a solid player, but he's not this first round pick. So it's turning a bunch of people into just end up hating on Will Levis, but it's just unfair. I feel like expectations kind of put on him. But this holding this Kentucky team, like basically the exact formula Kentucky needed to win this game was the opposite of what happened in this game. Like even Tennessee had a 15-play drive where they took 5-6 minutes of the clock. Like Kentucky, I think almost like 35 carries or so, averaging 3 yards a carry. Like they just didn't really do it. And they have to stay committed to the running game because that is their offense. And Will Levis with 3 picks, it's just, they really couldn't get anything going the last 2.5 quarters of this game.
That's fair. And
98 passing yards. Like, what is that?
Here's my thing, and the real football stuff did not help. Just rat poison for Tennessee this week when you're calling it real football. It's like, no, this is real football. And this is what I've been saying for weeks. When you hear teams and they're like, we don't need to score 50. We're going to, like, when you saw the matchup, it was like, will Tennessee keep their 35 points or more streak alive, or will Kentucky keep their 24 under? It's like, we know the answer to this question. The game plan to beat Tennessee is not like Alabama's top 6 in scoring defense right now. I don't know if people are looking at it. They're giving a point 19 a game. Like they dropped 52. You're going to have to put up points. Like there's no path to you beating the Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and this offense without putting up a bunch of points. Like punting is not an option. Like you cannot have possessions where
Kentucky did get some stops in this one though.
They did. Like Kentucky, it's a weird game because Kentucky did not play awful. The score was awful. It was more Levis. It was more the offensive line. Chris Rodriguez going out in the second half really hurt them too. But, I mean, you missed the extra point. They had a bad drop early in this one that could have kept the drive going. But, I mean, certain things, just bad luck where the Danico Slaughter hit and then an interception because he just hit him so hard the ball bounces up and Jawan Mitchell takes it back. Like, those are just game-shifting plays. But it goes back to the broader point, which is like Kentucky wanted to dictate how they wanted to go. That first drive for them that scored, and they thought they were going to play like that. And it's just, that is not how you're going to beat Tennessee. Like this is a preview for Georgia this week. Like anyone who thinks Georgia's defense is keeping Tennessee under 35, like it's going to be like last year's Georgia-Tennessee game, you're just wrong. Like that's not how it's going to go. And I think if you even ask Kirby to this point, he would tell you like, yeah, we're going to have to score 49. Like we're going to have to score 45. Like he's not going to be breathing comfortably or feeling okay if he's looking at the scoreboard and we're at the top of the fourth quarter and it's like Georgia's got 28 points. Doesn't matter. Like you just don't want to be in that spot if you're the Dogs or anybody against this offense. And I think that is the thing to watch is Tennessee dictates the style of play each week and there's no stopping it. Hendon Hooker is the Heisman favorite. Jalen Hyatt is absolutely bonkers. They're doing all this without a healthy Cedric Tillman. There's just so many ways for them to slice and dice you. Jalen Wright has the best after contact ability of any running back I've seen in years. I cannot wait to see him continue to get better and better because he had some absolutely bonkers runs where he was able to stay on his feet in this one. There's a reason he was on the freaks list by Bruce Feldman this offseason in The Athletic. He's a star in the making. It's just, you're going to have to put up a lot of points. And this idea that like, that Kentucky was going to dictate tempo and like people worrying about time of possession does not matter. If you're keeping track of, the Dogs are keeping Tennessee off the field for a lot of this game, great. Doesn't matter. That's not how you beat them.
Time of possession most certainly matters.
No.
Kentucky just doesn't have a good offense.
Their offense Tennessee had the ball for 22 minutes against Alabama and scored 52 points.
But I'm saying it doesn't not matter. If you're a team, I
think Tennessee, it doesn't matter. I think they're one of the few that doesn't matter.
But I'm saying that's one of the only ways you can combat a team that scores quickly like that. Like Kentucky just wasn't able to execute what we said their game plan had to be, which is run the ball and play good defense, get some stops, and keep the ball out of their hands.
But that's not what I said. I said they have to feed Barry and Brown. I said they have to go deep. They have to feed Brown, Key,
but
deep.
that's not realistic. Kentucky isn't going to be able to get into a shootout and stop and be able to compete with Tennessee. Like they essentially have to play their style. And I feel like someone like Georgia, who you've seen run the ball better as far as this season, obviously has made explosive plays in the pass game as well, scored a lot of points offensively, but I feel like running the ball and keeping Hendon Hooker's offense off of the field, I feel like it's one of the only ways you can beat this team. I mean, their offense is that good.
I would say you want them on the field. I think if you want to see Tennessee being like a struggling Tennessee team, they've been on the field too long. Like if their drives are going and they're not getting any big plays, if their time possession's high, that means they have not had the big scores. That means they have
but
not.
Even better, if they're having to drive for 6-7 minutes on you, and you're driving 6-7 minutes on them.
That's what you want to do.
That's an entire quarter of 2 possessions. That's what I'm saying. So I think the only way to beat a team like Tennessee is to try to keep the offense off the field. I mean, they're
keep Tennessee's offense on the field.
Just keep play. I mean, yeah, you have to limit the big plays because that's what they've done to everybody. Just the 50-yard gashes. I mean, I don't know how long the one to Hyatt was right there before the half, but just 2 huge plays. I mean, I think Kentucky pretty much played a good defensive first half, and you give up 2 50-yard touchdowns, and now you've given up 27 points just like that.
Tennessee's number 1 in 40-plus yard pass plays this season. They have 19 plays of 40-plus yards. They have 10 plays of 50-plus yards. The next closest is Memphis at 13. Like, it's just a different animal. Tennessee is an outlier in a lot of ways, and I'm trying to find where Georgia is on this because I feel like I haven't seen a big Georgia pass play through the hour outside of like Bowers. Where is Georgia on this list? How far down? What would you guess? Oh my goodness. Okay, what would you guess? Where would you guess Georgia is on 40-plus yard passing plays?
Oh, probably not very high. I can think of, only a few Bowers plays off the top of my head.
2. They're 118th in the country in 40-yard passing plays. Do you know what that speaks to? And this is something I've said. Is A.D. Mitchell? Are we sure he exists? Are we sure?
Well, he's been hurt.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is he ever coming back? What is Kearis Jackson going to be? Everything comes down to Washington and Bowers, who are unbelievable in their own right. But I don't know, man. A lot of Ladd McConkey expectations going into Saturday.
And Ladd McConkey, since that Kent State game where he just played like the worst game of his career,
been good.
I feel like he hasn't been like what he was. He doesn't seem to be what as explosive an athlete as he was the year before. And I think there was even a punt return that he wasn't on, if I'm not mistaken, this past week. But the one thing I think that gets overlooked, as long as Georgia would use him this way, is I've heard a lot about Georgia doesn't have a number 1 receiver. Like they can't win because they don't have a number 1 receiver.
Hold on, let's hold this. Let's move to Georgia and Florida. Let's tie this into Georgia and Florida.
So yeah, just looking at Georgia and Florida, obviously, I think Georgia's offense looked pretty much dominant in this one. In the first half, up 28-3. And then you saw the turnovers happen. And this is probably at least the third game I can think of with Missouri and Kent State, and now this one where you turn the ball over. There's those 3 games, I think alone, Georgia has like 8 or 9 turnovers, like over half the turnovers on the season. And you can let teams play with you. So I think it was, one of the interceptions, I guess it's hard to take anything away. I think the last interception was a bad throw and a good play by the defender. The first interception, you just got to tip your cap to the defensive player on that one. Just took it out of his hands. It got the feet in. And then the fumble force, that's a forced turnover on Florida's part. But it's you can't turn the ball over like that against good teams and expect to win. And so Georgia was really cruising in that one. Until that point. And so it was good to see okay, there's adversity. Florida made it 28-20 in this one, and then Georgia pulled away. But what I was going to say, I've heard a lot about the number 1 receiver thing. And I think it's a concern of Georgia, opening teams up vertically. But Brock Bowers call him whatever you want to call him. The guy is a number one receiver. Like this guy, he's one of the best players in the country. And I wish Georgia would just start using him the way teams use running backs, because I mean he's that good. Like this guy should touch the ball 15 times a game. Give him 5 carries, give him 10 touches a game. Like he's that good of a player. And so I wish. I mean, you saw in this game, we had 5 catches for 150 yards.
Well, I was going to ask you, was this his best game of the year? I feel like it was.
I think the South Carolina game was his best game. That's where he had the rushing touchdown, and I think like over 100 yards receiving as well. But yeah, and this was definitely a big game for him. And you're seeing Darnell Washington too. Darnell Washington, I think, might be the second best player on this offense. Like this guy, you can't really convince me that there's a tight end, a second tight end in the country that's better than Darnell Washington. Honestly, this guy is just a monster blocking. He catches basically everything that's thrown to him. He did drop one in this game. That was another thing. Stetson seemed to miss some throws, but also there were some drops by McConkey and Washington. So I feel like this offense just needs to be more crisp. It's like you're saying that after they scored 42 points versus Florida and Jacksonville, right? Like we're talking about a 22-point win in Jacksonville. Like, I don't know. Georgia not necessarily as dominant as I kind of wanted them to look. But, I mean, that's kind of where we are with Georgia's program. The one thing the last few weeks is after struggling early in the season, I think Georgia's really hitting their stride running the ball. I think Kendall Milton, I think he's still hurt. I'm not sure if he's hurt or if he's just fallen down the depth chart that far. But I think he's basically 4th on the depth chart at this point. And you're seeing, I think you saw when the game was in balance, I thought it was really interesting. I feel like it was a lot of Kenny McIntosh. He seemed like the head and shoulders number one guy getting all of the carries until the second half. You saw more of Dejon Edwards and then Branson Robinson kind of closing it out in that like Elijah Holyfield role, like fourth quarter, just come in and start running hard and throwing people down. But
not really the same size though. Not really the same.
I feel like they're probably similar. They're probably same height. Branson Robinson's probably got like another 20, 30 pounds on him. He's
that I would say more like 40. Dejon Edwards is not a
no.
Thick
I was saying Branson Robinson compared to Holyfield.
Okay, Branson Robinson. I thought you were saying Dejon Edwards. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Branson Robinson, he's a stud. But yeah, Edwards with over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. McIntosh with 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. So yeah, I think they still clearly need A.D. Mitchell back, and it was unfortunate because I felt like Georgia's receiving core coming into the year was really deep with like solid receivers, but there wasn't one that was nearly as good as A.D. Mitchell. And if he was going to miss some time, that might throw off the passing game. You've at least seen some of the tight ends step up, but you can tell Georgia does need a guy out wide, I think, to stretch defenses, and A.D. Mitchell was that. And so I'm hopeful he can be back for the Tennessee game. Remains to be seen. I'm not that confident. Nolan Smith was another one that got hurt in this Florida game. I don't know if he just was in street clothes for the rest of the game, but I don't know if that's precautionary or if he's in jeopardy of missing the Tennessee game as well. But yeah, I think, outside of the third quarter, this game was 35-3. So Florida just got the momentum there in the third quarter, but I think Georgia pretty much took care of business. So we don't have a lot of mutual data points for Georgia and Tennessee to this point, which is kind of interesting. It's pretty much Florida. Is that the only common opponent they've played to this point? Tennessee hasn't played Vanderbilt or South Carolina or Missouri. So yeah, it's tough to say. So Georgia 23 touchdown win, neutral site. Tennessee 5-point win at home. So
same kind of thing though.
Transitive property. It was Florida did make it look close near the end there, but we'll see what happens. Anthony Richardson, I feel like he was getting more design runs in this game, which is it's like I don't know why that wouldn't be one of the 3 plays you called, like every series, a design run for Anthony Richardson. It's clearly his strength. But yeah, he's a dynamic athlete, but you just, other than the one big touchdown, which it looked like really the safety trying to jump the route and didn't get it, so gave an 80-yard touchdown. But other than that, it's like Anthony Richardson just doesn't really, so many deep balls just look like you're just throwing up a prayer. Like there was one like 2nd and 10, middle of the second quarter, he's just scrambling and just throws like a 70-yard Hail Mary, and it's just like, what was that play? Like, I don't even understand why he just threw a Hail Mary in the middle of the second quarter. But I don't know. He's got talent, and I've heard Florida fans talk about, like, do you think he'll come back next year? And it's like, I don't know where he's going to go. Unless he's transferring. I mean, this guy clearly has a whole lot to improve on. I felt like in the first 2 quarters of this game, I didn't know how good Georgia looked or how just inept Florida kind of looked. For like, I don't know. They did not look like a competitive team until they really were not a competitive team for anything but like a 10-minute stretch in the third quarter. So I don't know. Florida's got a long way to go. South Carolina took a step back this week. So I thought that was going to be a tough game for Florida. Now I'd have no idea what to expect, but still with A&M, South Carolina, Florida State, there's still some tough obstacles that I think I don't know if Florida's better than any of those teams.
I have my receipts on this podcast. My South Carolina, my Kentucky, my Mizzou, my Florida takes. Just go back in the pod, folks. They're right there. They're right there. It's just man, just not in the same ballpark as Tennessee, Georgia. It's a different game. But like you said, I don't even care about the data points that much. I wonder, the other subtle part of this game, I thought, and it's interesting you didn't really mention this part, was Stetson throwing 2 picks. Stetson could have thrown more for folks who watch this game. He struggled, I would say, more than I've seen Stetson. And I'm pro Stetson on this podcast. So Georgia fans, don't come after me for this. I've said, and Matt Green, you can attest to this, that Stetson and Hendon have been the best 2 quarterbacks in the SEC this year. And especially going into the year, and just the efficiency stuff and everything else, like they both deserve a lot of respect and all that. I just think it's not the best time for him to look the way he's looking right now. If I'm a Georgia fan, you're like, this is not the time when it's just one of those things where I think Stetson, and it's not his fault, where if Brock is not there or Darnell Washington's not there and guys are not open, because like you said, Ladd is not who he's been, no AD Mitchell, he needs to throw people open. And it seems like that's not him right now. That's not what's happening. But because Georgia is so good running the football, they had over 235 yards. I think they ran 6.8 yards per carry or something. It's Florida. They have a multitude of backs that they can throw at you. The thing is, Tennessee has a top 10 rush defense in the country. We'll see what happens there. But I think for Georgia to beat Tennessee next Saturday, I think those picks cannot happen. Like what we saw where you got yourself in a hole. Will Levis, those couple picks against Tennessee will bury you. That will bury you against this Tennessee team because of just you can't throw away offensive possessions like that against the Vols. You just can't. And I'm curious what they clean up or what they learned from Florida to kind of get ready for this and get Stetson's head right. I don't know. Like, what did you see? Do you think Stetson had a sneaky bad game in this one?
I felt like some of the first half struggles, I kind of put more on some of the drops from the receivers, because I feel like there was a couple what could have been some big plays offensively. Obviously, I mean, kind of got lucky with and then the one pick in the first half too was really a perfect throw he made to Dominic Blaylock, and a pretty nice like back shoulder catch Dominic Blaylock made, and then the defender kind of flipped over him and took the ball at the same time. Like that was a kind of an incredible catch, but or incredible interception. But I felt like in the second half he did seem to miss some throws and just some throws that he just needs to be making. Like you said, with Tennessee, this being like potential number 1 versus number 2 matchup. like College Game Day, like Game of the Year, like you want to see a Georgia offense a little more crisp than what it was. And
Can I
that's
give
the
you a
other.
Stetson Florida stat for you?
I
Does
know
it feel
he.
like this? I'm gonna see if you'll guess this. If this sounds right to you, based on what you've seen from Stetson, the full Florida experience. His career stats against UF:
I think I know what you're gonna say, but yeah, go ahead.
34 of 73 for 47% completion percentage, 555 passing yards, 4 TDs, and 5 picks, 2 wins and 1 loss. That's kind
Yeah,
of wild.
2020, George got off to the good start, up 14-0, and then he did separate his shoulder in that one, but then threw a
Yeah.
couple
It
picks.
might just be a Florida thing.
Juan Mathis came in, but yeah, and last year he did throw a couple picks, and one of his picks is what led to the whole downfall there at the end of the second quarter, when George went from 3-0 to 24-0 in like a minute and a half. But yeah, he definitely didn't play his best at in the cocktail party, but 2 wins, that's what quarterbacks are pretty much measured on. So especially a Georgia quarterback winning in Jacksonville, you can't really beat that. But yeah, I
Well, let me
think
just say, like, if Stetson has 2 picks against Tennessee on Saturday, Georgia is not winning this football game. Like, let me just go ahead and pin that, like, Georgia fans. Just get ready. Like, that, he cannot have that. He just can't.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you can't give a team like Tennessee multiple
Extra
more
possessions.
possessions. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We got time to break that one down. But yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, obviously Florida gave them a scare in the third quarter, but I think for the most part, you saw this offense moving the ball pretty well. So it's
Also,
hard
Jalen
to
Carter was
know.
awesome. Like, I don't know if you watched some of those Jalen Carter snaps, but I don't know how you block Jalen Carter. Like, there was some stuff
Yeah.
where I was rewinding, and Jalen Carter's just, he's a monster.
And ultimately, that's how Georgia is going to have to beat Tennessee. It's going to have to be their defense making more plays than Tennessee's
Well,
defense,
defensive line
getting some
specifically. I think
stops.
it's
Yeah,
just them getting through and hitting Hendon. Like, if
and
Hendon is getting shook and he's having to make quick throws, or he's getting hit while he's throwing, and then a Georgia defender, like, I mean, Keely Ringo just bounces into the picture and returns it for 6. That's how you really interrupt this Tennessee offense.
yeah, without a doubt. And I think they had 3 sacks in this one. They were last in the SEC in sacks coming in to this one. But I can't remember where I saw the stat in terms of pressure generated without blitzing. They're top 5 nationally. And so I think that goes a long way to potentially defending Tennessee's ridiculous offense. Is just,
well, can I throw this at you?
can they keep guys in coverage, keep the big plays from happening, and not have to blitz?
I heard Staples on his show today. He said that, and I thought this was interesting because I was wondering, like, I was galaxy braining it of like, do you want, if you're a Tennessee fan or a Georgia fan, do you want to drop this game on Saturday, avoid the SEC title game, and just go in and take your chances on 11-1 to make the playoff? And what he said was something I hadn't really considered, but I guess when you really consider both resumes, Tennessee wins, even if they lose, and obviously you take care of business against South Carolina, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. But like, even if you lose to Alabama in the SEC title game, you're making the playoff. Like, if you beat Bama and Georgia in the regular season and you take care of business the rest of the way and you finish the regular season 12-0, you're in the playoff. Like, it's done. The SEC team that finished 12-0 in the regular season is making the college football playoff, which I hadn't considered.
Without a doubt, because if they beat Georgia, like Georgia's not getting in ahead of Tennessee.
Yeah.
It can't happen. So it's like this idea that it's better to not make the play. Like, the only way that the loser of this game doesn't get or can get to the playoff is if it's Tennessee, obviously, because they have that win over Alabama. But but their entire season hinges on Georgia also beating Alabama. Because if Alabama beats Georgia, well, then you're just kind of fucked. You're not getting three. You're not getting 3 SEC teams in. Like, as cool of an idea as that might be.
Even though we
don't even really want that, honestly. We want to see if the best of the SEC versus the best of other conferences. Like, especially if we've seen these Tennessee matchups with both of these teams. But we're a long way from that. So I think if Georgia wins on well, we can get to we still got a whole week to get to Georgia. So yeah, we can I don't know, whatever the last thing you were gonna say.
No, that's good. We're chomping at the bit to talk Georgia, Tennessee.
Yeah, without a doubt.
A pod divided.
Biggest game in Sanford Stadium. Then it's like the $1 million question this week. I expect Claude Felton the renowned SID to come up with a stat of top 3, top 5 matchups or something. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. But I mean, it's the biggest game in Sanford Stadium I can think of.
I think it's the biggest one ever. Yeah, for sure. I mean, 1-2, like you're enjoy it, folks. I don't know
That's
when it's gonna be like
sorry.
this ever
That the
again.
CFP committee. That's why they need to make it 1 and 2. These teams are about to play this week. Just make them 1 and 2. It makes it sexier. We all know that. Let's hype up the fight. Let's promote this thing. Let's inflate the rankings here.
Yeah, absolutely. That leaves us like 9 minutes to talk about the other games that happened this weekend. Well, Penn State, they fall to Ohio State in the second half. It got ugly in a hurry. That's the kind of the story of this weekend for some teams. It got ugly in a hurry. For a lot of these, like Kentucky got ugly in a hurry for them. They were hanging with them. Penn State, they were hanging for a little bit. Then it got ugly. Wake Forest was hanging with them, and then it got ugly. Oklahoma State, you're like, wait. Oh, then it got ugly. So that was kind of the case all over the board. But for Penn State, I just don't understand why they don't have the horses to finish any of these big second half games. Alex Kirshner, Split Zone Duo, tweeted, quote, "It gets way worse than Sean Clifford, but I think it's a fair criticism of Franklin that he's been on Penn State administration to give him more so they can be like Ohio State. And at the same time, he makes this QB decision for this many years, and it works out like this." I mean, Penn State led 21-16 with 9:26 to play, Matt Green. And then Ohio State
Yeah.
scored 4 touchdowns down the stretch. Like, that's just, it's a gut punch, man, if you're a Penn State fan, because you just feel so stinking close. And then the rug's just pulled out from under you. Pick 6. Clifford had several picks in this one. I thought the biggest takeaway is Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best receiver in the country. So he's just when Jackson Smith and Jigba is right, like I don't know what you're doing with these guys. Like they're just they're
whoever their number
unbelievable.
1 receiver is just the best receiver in the country. Like
Yeah.
5 years running. It's just insane.
But Penn State, usually if you hold Ohio State to 16 points for 3 quarters, you have a really good shot of winning this football game. The final score does not match how this game went, but I just feel like if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm gutted. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Yeah, I think the exact same. You're just the offense with multiple turnovers in the fourth quarter. Like Ohio State's defense really took over the fourth quarter. But yeah, to outscore them 28-17 in the fourth quarter after leading, like you said, with 9 minutes left, is definitely this was the formula for beating Ohio State. You just couldn't turn the ball over multiple times and to end this game. So Penn State had them where they wanted them, but I feel like after watching this game, I think I'm a little more down on Ohio State than I was when the game started. I think versus Iowa, Stroud he just looked a little off, like missed some throws that you don't really see him miss. And in this game, he didn't necessarily, I mean, 26 of 33, it's a really good percentage, but there's something about this Ohio State offense. It doesn't seem to be clicking like I kind of expected it to, especially 8-9 games into the season. So I think, like you were saying with Michigan over Ohio State, like that would have been blasphemy to me like 2-3 weeks ago. But now the more you look at it, like, yeah, I probably will still like Ohio State to win that one in the horseshoe, but Michigan is looking just as good these days. So this was tough. It was obviously a good win because Ohio State's defense did make the plays down the stretch. But the offense is and Penn State's got a good defense, so you got to give them some credit there. But I think they were a little more human than I was expecting their offense to look. A little more mortal, if you will.
For sure. TCU stays immortal and undefeated. Sonny Dykes becomes the first head coach in Big 12 history to begin 8-0 in their first season in the conference. My main takeaway, though, the Frogs love to start slow, and they're going to get bitten one of these days. West Virginia almost bit them. Like, they were in this game super late. Like, this could have gone to West Virginia. You love going to Morgantown and what that can be. JT Daniels played 4 quarters. Like, I hadn't realized that TCU's got a lot of fortune with backup quarterbacks to this point, and quarterbacks getting knocked out of the game and things like that. Obviously, with Adrian Martinez week prior, but like I don't know. TCU, look, they deserve all the credit in the world. Sonny Dykes has got that thing humming, but Quentin Johnson, Max Duggan, like they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. Defense makes plays when they need to, but I don't know. My main takeaway is the slow starts are going to catch up with them at some point. There's that part scares me the most. What did you make of TCU beating the Mountaineers?
Well, and the defense is still allowing 27 points a game. Like you're scoring close to 45, but not necessarily what you want. Like we said, going into this game, getting out of Morgantown, West Virginia with a victory is always a success. Weird things seem to happen. I think they caught a break with this noon slot for this one, but yeah, I think I was impressed. TCU going on the road, keeping it moving. Yeah, job well done.
Yeah,
fifth
and
team in the country.
Dogs on Top had this, Matt Green. You know, TCU and the Frogs have something in common. Do you know this?
TCU in Georgia?
Yes.
What's that?
Georgia is one of just 2 teams in FBS to average 300 yards passing and 200 yards rushing per game. The other one, TCU.
How about that? And they got National Coach of the Year, Sonny Dykes, running the show. So gotta love that.
So you saw me quote tweet that one. What in the world was that?
I mean, he's what, 8-0 at first year head coach. I think he might be the front runner at this point.
I'm gonna curse. This is gonna pit. It's 12. It's 1 o'clock.
We'll
I'm about to curse. I'm about to curse.
There's a long season. If they run the table, if Tennessee wins the conference, Hype will be National Coach of the Year.
Get the fuck out of here. If they go 11-1 and their only losses to Georgia, Heupel is still the runaway Coach of the Year. What are we talking about?
Sonny Dykes is in year 1, man.
If their only loss is to freaking Georgia, who might win the national,
TCU has no losses though.
Tennessee has no losses.
What's Shane Beamer's record? That's the better question.
What are you doing to me, Matt Green? Do you want me to self-combust on this podcast?
No,
Get out of here with this. No.
Coach of the Year. That's a big award for you.
What do you want him to do? Average 59 a game? What do you want him to do? Beat Alabama twice?
I'm just saying, man. If TCU wins the Big 12, who saw that coming? Where were they preseason?
It's the Big 12.
It's Division I football.
Oh my goodness.
That was some quote.
The runaway. It's the runaway part for me, Matt Green. It's the runaway favorite for me, where I don't know what Josh Heupel did to these voters and what, like, for them to just treat him with no respect in back-to-back seasons at Tennessee, co-coach of the year, newcomer of the year with we don't speak his name on this podcast, and then to follow that up with Sonny Dykes as the runaway coach of the year. And Sonny Dykes has done an amazing job, but runaway coach of the year just makes my blood boil. But it's happy times in Rocky Top. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Matt Green, the Syracuse Orangemen, now on a losing skid. They fall at home to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who offensive explosion. This was probably the biggest surprise of the weekend for me. We should mention Garrett Schrader injured coming in, and he just did not look right. That offense wasn't moving. He was struggling. He didn't play the second half. They got blown out, 41 points for Notre Dame, which was bonkers. But you look at the stats. 9 completions total for Drew Pine. Barely over 100 yards. Michael Mayer did some stuff, but they didn't even really run the ball all that well. Just some bad turnovers by Syracuse. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this, because the storyline coming out of this was Notre Dame Clemson just got a lot more interesting. And I look at this and I was like, what Drew Pine are y'all watching? What I get that they nice win on the road at Q's, but I didn't see that much more to feel great about Notre Dame. Am I crazy? Did you have that same feeling, or do you have a different feeling on Notre Dame at this point?
No, it's hard for me to get too excited about Notre Dame. I mean, like you said, Drew Pine, 116 yards passing. It felt like it was going to be this. Felt just with the way Clemson or Syracuse lost that Clemson game, it just felt so demoralizing. I said going in, I felt like it was going to be a letdown, and then I didn't pick Notre Dame. I ended up picking Syracuse, and that's what it felt like. Just Syracuse, I don't know. They did not look good in this game. But I mean, you got to give credit to Notre Dame for running all over them. What has been a really good Syracuse defense to this point, but they just didn't look like the same team that played against Clemson a week ago. So, yeah, I mean, big win obviously from Notre Dame, but I was not impressed with Syracuse this week.
No. Someone else I was not impressed with, Mr. Deckers, quarterback. This is I don't know how you did this stat of the week, Matt Green. He threw the ball against Oklahoma 57 times and averaged 3 yards per attempt. I don't know how that happened. I don't know what's going on with the Iowa State Cyclone offense, but the ghost of Seneca Wallace rolling over in his grave watching this offense week over week.
I can't confidently say that Seneca Wallace is still alive, but
he's still alive. Seneca's still out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even the Oklahoma defense could solve this Iowa State offense's problems. Like, I mean, almost everyone in the Big 12 has been hanging half 100 on Oklahoma. So to see them do nothing, turn the ball over several times, yeah, not a good performance. Iowa State looks really bad, honestly, and Matt Campbell. I don't know. Interesting where this team's gone since 2019, 2020.
Yeah, Matt Campbell's not going anywhere is what I'm going to go with that one. He's kind of locked in there for a little bit for this rebuild. This kind of year is not looking great.
He's going to give Kirk Ferentz a call. He's like, hey, how do you do it, man? How do you just – and he's going to tell him how to just enjoy life in Iowa for a while.
Kansas State with probably, I mean, I said Notre Dame surprised me the most. I guess probably it's not the result because Kansas State's a fantastic football team, but to shut out Oklahoma State at home in the Little Apple, Kansas State obliterates the Cowboys with their backup, Will Howard. Matt Green, what happened here? Like Mike Gundy said after the game, quote, "We got our butt kicked today, got out coached, and they made more plays than us. What we need to do is come up with a plan for things we did wrong, coaching wise, and in concept wise, and player wise. That will be more of a boost for us than anything." So everything's wrong. Like that statement was like, oh.
Other than that,
things are going great in Stillwater.
Without a doubt, yeah. 35-0 at the half. Kansas State they ran all over Oklahoma State, and we just obviously this defense has been getting torched by everybody all year, but at least the offense has been scoring and making it fun. Like, man, Kansas State just absolutely put the shackles on the Cowboys. Will Howard, that's my helmet sticker of the week. Oh, also Brock Bowers. Forgot to say that one earlier. But yeah, Will Howard, 21 of 37, 296 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Deuce Vaughn, over $150 on the ground. Like, Kansas State, man, this Big 12, it's looking real interesting. We got Oklahoma State and Kansas State, I think both tied at 4-2 in the conference. No, that was Oklahoma State's second loss in the conference.
Yes.
So I can tell you what the standings look like. But yeah, Big 12 is getting real interesting. I think we might be seeing a TCU Kansas State rematch.
I think that's possible. I thought this was a funny tweet from Jay Olsen62. Oklahoma and Texas leaves Big 12. Oklahoma State, we the big boys now. Purple teams, no.
Hey, but don't count out the Texas Longhorns, sir. No one will give up on the Texas Longhorns. Also, that was kind of a joke, but in all seriousness, my Baylor Bears, sir. Don't sleep on the Baylor Bears right now. They're still 3-2 in the conference. They got at Oklahoma this week, Kansas State the following week, TCU the following week, at Texas the week after that. So we'll learn a lot about the Baylor Bears over the next 4 weeks, playing the preseason 2 best teams in the Big 12 and the current 2 best teams in the Big 12 in the final 4 weeks.
Fox College Football also said this. The last AP top 10 team with a 40-plus point shutout loss was when number 11 Cal defeated number 10 Syracuse 43-0 in 1968.
Whew. Wow.
Just you just don't see stuff like this. Like, it was just a bonkers result. So
Yeah, I was thinking, what was it? The playoffs. The year Giants went to the Super Bowl, played the Ravens. That 2000,
Kerry
2001.
Collins versus Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, Kerry Collins. They beat somebody 41-zip. Maybe was it the Rams at that time? I can't remember, but I remember being front of Sports Illustrated 41-0. It was you don't see 40-point shutouts that often.
Are you a Jeremy Shockey guy? Tiki Barber, Jason Sehorn at corner, Michael
Jason
Strahan.
Sehorn. Gotta love some Jason Sehorn. Without a doubt. Tiki Barber was definitely on that team, right?
Yeah.
2001. Man, that's
Jeremy
pre
Shockey,
Plaxico
probably
Burress.
what's his name? Amani Toomer.
Monty Toomer is definitely on that team. That's a good. Maybe Ike Hilliard might
I
be
think
on
so.
that team. Yeah, that's before Jeremy Shockey though, because he was probably still at Miami. Like 01, 2000 to 01, because he was on that 01 Miami team for sure. But
okay,
yeah, Plaxico Burress would have been on the Steelers probably 2000. 2001,
he wasn't there. I know. Yeah, he wasn't there yet.
But Amani Toomer, that's a good pool right there, sir.
There we go. All this stuff. It could be filled with like, hey, economics, how to budget. No, Amani Toomer on the 2001 New York Giants. That's where my brain goes.
I'm gonna have to look up that roster because the Tiki Barber doesn't sound right to me now. But I'm gonna get back to you.
He's been retired for a long time, man. It's got to be Tiki. We're going to Louisville. Another bonkers result, Matt Green. The Louisville Cardinals pounce on 6 straight Wake turnovers. 35-0 Cards in the third quarter. 8 turnovers as a whole. Louisville scored 35 points in the third quarter versus number 10 Wake. It was the most ever scored against an AP top 10 opponent in one quarter. That's insane. Like, this was, I mean, I did not see this coming at all. It's maybe a job saver for Scott Satterfield at home. My old friend Tion Evans had a really good day for the Cards. Gone but not forgotten, Tion Evans. But man, just unbelievable. Pick sixes, fumbles. This had an unbelievable, you never see meltdowns like this from a top 10 team in college football. But Wake Forest, just part of it bad luck, but goodness gracious, I've never seen anything like it. Like, that is bonkers. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Without a doubt. First thing, let me go back to the 2000 New York Giants. I know the listeners want to hear this. You were correct about Tiki Barber being on that team. Ron Dane was the second running back on that squad. They beat the Vikings 41-0 in the conference championship. So that's what I was thinking of. Okay. So just wanted to confirm that. But onto the Wake Forest Demon Deacons and their absolutely atrocious second half of football. I'm going to read for you their drive-by-drive second half results here. They had a pick six, fumble, interception, fumble, punt, pick six, fumble, interception. And once they were down a solid 4 touchdowns or so, I think then they decided to score a touchdown. But yeah, awful result from a team that's just been so explosive offensively for most of the season. So yeah, don't know what happened. They just decided to get all their turnovers out in one fell swoop in the second half of that football game. I've never seen anything like it.
Man, and we probably won't for a long time. Like, the odds of something like that happening again, pretty slim. Speaking of rough second halves, Nebraska was shut out in the second half by the vaunted Illinois Fighting Illini defense. Nebraska, Casey Thompson got knocked out in this one, but with the win, the Illinois is now number 1 sole possession, first place, Big Ten West. They outrushed Nebraska significantly with Chase Brown and company, 188-60. The only chance that they really Nebraska had in this one was Trey Palmer had to have a game of his life and beat these Illinois defenders deep, and Nebraska just didn't do it. Didn't run the ball. You're not going to outrush Brett Bielema on this Illini team, but you're going to have to beat them over the top and test them deep, and they were not able to do so. Illinois, like they do every week, dominated time possession, but shout out to the Brett Bielemas. They're killing it in Champaign. Great story this year. Great story by the Illini. What'd you make of it?
Without a doubt, Illinois just keeps on churning. A touchdown in this game for an Isaiah Williams for Illinois. Do we know? Is there a relation to Juice Williams there?
I don't
Isaiah
think so.
Williams. I don't know, but yeah. So this is a good performance for Illinois. Just keep the thing moving, and they're in second place, and they've beaten, or they're in first place, and they've beaten Minnesota and Purdue already, right? Have they played both of them? So
yes.
they're wait, no, Purdue, they still do have to play Purdue.
Oh, they do. But Purdue's out. They have a couple losses now. I don't think they're going to make up some ground.
I mean, Purdue is what? They're 3-2 in the conference. So Purdue's right there. this Illinois team just looks better than Purdue, I think, right now. I think whereas that game is at home for Illinois. So we'll see.
Whisper something? Illinois fans, don't get mad at me. Purdue, Ohio State would be a better Big Ten title game than Illinois, Ohio State. Can I say that?
Yeah, probably. Ohio State, Illinois gives you some of those Tennessee, Kentucky vibes.
Yeah.
But Illinois has been a lot better than Kentucky. That's what Kentucky wants to be, is what Illinois has been this year, and they've actually been able to run the ball and play really good defense. So I don't know, with what we've seen, the way Penn State gave Ohio State problems, like Illinois has been a more effective team to this point in the year than Penn State. So I'm not gonna count out the Fighting Illini just yet, sir.
That's fair. Matt Green. We also have UCF taking down Cincy. You tried to kick them off my pick'em, and thankfully you did not, because my UCF Knights win over the Bearcats. Basically no Desmond Ridder. Bryant's just not the dude. He had a lot of opportunities. Like John Reese Plumlee got knocked out in this one. Mikey Keene comes in, does what he needs to do. Gus Malzahn said after the game, for him to step up at that moment and seize that moment on the last drive, that dude is a winner with a capital W. 48 seconds, they take the lead and end up winning and knocking off the Bearcats for an AAC loss. First one in a long time for Cincy. Their other loss was obviously out of conference to Arkansas earlier this year, but UCF gets it done in Orlando. Good team. Gus Malzahn's got them cooking.
Yeah, without a doubt. This was a big-time win for UCF. And I will say, while we did not pick it on the podcast, it was still a part of the group pick'em that I was a part of. And I'll have you know, sir, this game, I think, went a long way to me winning the group pick'em pool that I was involved in this week. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot away. So yeah, UCF, I was one of the only people that picked UCF this week, and I felt good about it. The big time win for Cincinnati. I'm looking ahead. I hate to look ahead in these in the AAC, because I feel like anything can happen kind of in these conferences, especially going to a team like Memphis. But November 12th, sir, at Tulane. UCF at Tulane. I think we could get College Game Day in New Orleans for that one. That's a potentially monster matchup for the AAC. Tulane, what are they, ranked in the top 20 now? Let's see if the Knights can take care of business against Memphis this week and set up a big time matchup in the AAC.
I like it. Last one, Matt Green, because we're not spending any amount of time on Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn gets blown out yet again. It's bad. Auburn stinks.
A friend of mine went to Vegas, and he was like, "Hey, what games do you like?" And I gave him this couple is kind of tough. I feel whatever about a couple games, but here you go. Here's like 2 or 3 games. He's like, "Perfect, thanks, man." Then he comes back. I picked these 3 games. None of the games I gave him. I was like, why'd you even ask my advice? One of the games I gave him advice on, not this Texas A&M, but it was.
I thought this was a joke. I thought you were doing a bit this whole time, and this is real life. Okay, this is a real story.
No, this really happened. And then one of the games I gave him, I was like, Arkansas is a 3-point favorite over Auburn. Like, that's super small. Auburn's terrible, and he didn't listen to that one. He took South Carolina was one of the ones he picked, but I even gave him the stat about Penn State. I was like, 6 straight matchups between Penn State and Ohio State have been decided by 13 points or less. 16 is a lot. And he went with Ohio State. So, what was the expression? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So, what can you do? But yeah, Arkansas, the 3-point line with Arkansas Auburn, I thought was interesting. I guess they thought Jordan Hare might make up for a little bit of the home field advantage there. But yeah, Arkansas took care of business. Auburn, Harsin, it's a ticking time bomb at this point.
Yeah. Last one, Matt Green, A&M. The one positive, they have a quarterback. Connor Weigman is a good player and passed all over Ole Miss on Saturday. I don't know why it took this long to get to Connor, but he's a good player. Lane Kiffin continues his amazing troll job in this one. Ole Miss blitzes him in the second half to come back. Huge win for Ole Miss on the road at Kyle Field. Kiffin told the SEC Network after the game, I don't know, maybe Jimbo has a Joker outfit for me as to what Halloween costume he was going to wear this year. Kiffin was seen shouting at that Texas A&M player and let me just, as a Tennessee guy and as someone who experienced the Tennessee Ole Miss game last year, Kiffin, who I'm pro Kiffin on this podcast, everyone knows this, for him to get really upset about the faking of injuries by Texas A&M in this one was just a little too much. That's a bridge too far, where we can replay the Ole Miss faking of injuries of last year in Knoxville with the mustard and golf balls. We can revisit it if we need to, but that's where I draw the line on Lane Kiffin's antics. But big win. He was mad, but basically you got to watch the video. Just look up Lane Kiffin faking injuries and you'll find the video of him just being like, fall down. He's basically saying fall down and fake the injury or something as he's walking on the field. But you got to watch it. It's funny. But Kiffin, good sense of humor all week about this matchup, and clearly some animosity between him and Jimbo, I think, for it to keep going and him just to keep poking the bear like that. But man, what a big win for Ole Miss. Judkins is a dude. He's now, I think, over 1,000 yards as a freshman. We thought coming into the year that it was going to be Zach Evans, former 5-star kid, as you know, Georgia legend, Zach Evans. And it's not. It's Judkins, who is just fantastic. Jackson Dart ran the ball like 17 times in this game. And that's when Ole Miss is at their best with this group. It's like not Jackson Dart through the air, not asking Jackson Dart to be Hooker through the air or Bryce Young through the air. It's asking him to be Matt Corral. And that's what Matt Corral excelled at so much, is those carries, and that Ole Miss being such a pain in the butt when their quarterback's on the move like that. I don't know. Ole Miss, huge win. Now they're 7-1 on the season. Big win for the Reps. What did you make of this one, Matt Green?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit it. I think we thought Zach Evans was going to be the difference in this and they're 8-1 actually now on the season.
8-1, yeah.
We all thought Zach Evans was going to be this breakout player for their offense, but Judkins, this guy is an absolute workhorse. 34 carries, 205 yards. They had almost 400 yards rushing in this game. I felt like Jackson Dart's legs, were the difference in this game. He was making a lot of plays, but Zach Evans is also still there. And so as the third option or so in this offense, he's a real X factor. It's like he's had some durability issues this year, but this Ole Miss offense it's just got a real quick strike ability, and I'm excited for when they play Alabama in a couple weeks. I think that's good. They're gonna give them some problems, but A&M, like you said with Connor Weigman, I thought it feels like they found their quarterback now. Like we can start to go from here. It's if our coach is this QB whisperer and this offensive guru, I would have liked to think he would have found him before the 9th game of the season, so maybe that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, A&M had a shot in this one, but ultimately they couldn't get enough stops. And Ole Miss, just if you're going to average 6 yards a carry, you're going to run for 400 yards, you're going to win a lot of games that way.
Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green. Anything you would like to, as we wrap up here on our week? What is this, week 10 recap show? Week 9
This
recap
was
show?
week 9. We got week
Yeah,
10 coming up.
man. Any other game you wanted to touch on real quick before we wrap up?
No, that's all I got, sir. This is going to be a great week for the podcast. Georgia, Tennessee. This is what this podcast is built for. So I'm excited for Wednesday night. This should be a lot of fun.
It hopefully it's not a blowout either way. That would stink. I hope this is a memorable one. Like, I don't know if my heart rate can handle Alabama, Tennessee all over again, but something close is what the doctor needs. Like, I want this to be a close back and forth. I want this to be a one possession game late in the fourth. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping this is just an unbelievable, like, who has possession last type game. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think you're going to see, the last time I can remember Kirby Smart kind of calling out the fan base was before that Arkansas noon kickoff last year. And it was an absolute ridiculous showing from the fans. Just absolutely packed environment, super loud at noon. You just don't really see that lots of times. It was a ridiculous atmosphere. A lot of people say like that may have been the loudest it was. With this being such a limited slate of home schedule this year for Georgia, just not very many just games to really get you excited. I think this fan base has really been chomping at the bit for like a big time electric atmosphere. I think it's
Wait,
like,
has Kirby called out the fans for this game?
he said something about like if you can talk on Sunday, then you weren't yelling loud enough on Saturday or something like that. Like some sort of quote like that. So he's trying to excite the fans, get them in just getting to be loud, man. It's going to be a big one for sure. So I'm
Kirby Smart,
excited.
2026 Tennessee DC. Who says no? If he wants that atmosphere, look no further than
2026.
Neyland Stadium. Look no further.
I don't even know. I don't even know how to respond to that. Georgia Sanford Stadium is a very loud atmosphere, sir. And if you didn't know, after Saturday in Sanford Stadium, you are sure to find out. And a lot of Georgia fans complaining about the no night games. It's become a storyline. I think it would be the first defending national champion to potentially not have a home night game since Michigan in '98 after the '97 season.
Are y'all not going to have one all year?
Unless the Georgia Tech game is a night game, then no, there won't be a home night game the entire season. However, this 3:30 slate, first weekend of November, day game to start with, night game, third, fourth quarter. This is what SEC football was built on, people. So it's going to be an incredible atmosphere. I'm excited for it.
But you'll also be on. It's just the home didn't work out. Like you'll be probably at night for Mississippi State. You'll probably be at night against Kentucky too,
Those
right?
could both be at night. Yeah, and the Missouri was at night.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of night games, but
they just haven't been at home,
in terms of
unfortunately.
a home night game, yeah, I think the home night game gets people going.
For sure. But it is kind of annoying. I will say, as someone who just did it this weekend, waiting around all day when you've got like you want to watch the other games and you're taking notes, but it's still kind of frustrating that you're like, okay, I'm ready for this game to start. I'm ready to start my night.
As a fan, I definitely prefer that 3:30 slot.
Yeah, 3:30 is clutch. That's the one you want.
The noon games get you going, get you prepped. Little preliminary fights, and then you don't want to wait around all day. Get your 3:30 in. Get home at a reasonable time if you went somewhere to watch the game. So yeah, it's give me the 3:30 slot all day. I'm curious to see what ESPN does once they own all the SEC rights. If the 3:30 slot is still the prime number one slot.
It should be. It's just the best. Like, yeah, no, it should be. I hope that's what they do, but we'll see. I mean, they still value the 7:00 spot too. That's like the second best game of the week, so that's probably what they would stick with, is what I would assume. All right, Matt Green. Well, that's all I've got, my friend. Recap or preview show coming up Wednesday, just a couple days. Week 10, everything on the line. Georgia, Tennessee. Only one team can win. It's not the NFL. Somebody has to walk out of Athens as the victor. Yes, you got your hand raised.
Also, low-key storyline. We're all talking about the SEC East being decided on Saturday, but not many talking about the SEC West potentially being decided on Saturday with Alabama LSU.
That's a big one. I mean, Bama's got some big time games down the stretch. So like Bama's not a lock for the SEC title or the SEC
Yeah,
West title. You still got at LSU and at Ole Miss, right? Aren't those both on the
yeah,
road?
yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the next 2 weeks, both on the road. So it'll be interesting.
Woo! Man, that'd be something. Hey, maybe my dream of Lane Kiffin versus Tennessee in the SEC title game this fall or this winter is
You
not.
don't want that though. It's
I
like
absolutely
it's
want
like
that.
the Cleveland Chicago World Series. It was like the Cubs, they're here, but it's like, well, yeah, it's also been like 70 years since the Indians won it. They're also trying to break some
No, we
curses
want to
right
go
now.
ahead and beat them,
You
and
want
that'd
to
be so
beat the
much fun.
Yankees, you want to beat the Juggernaut to win it
I
all.
absolutely do not want Alabama twice. That is not something I want
That's
one
fair.
iota.
Well, you already beat Alabama, so you don't
And beat the crap out of
necessarily you
LSU.
don't
So
have
if it's
anything
LSU, bring it on. Like,
you don't have
absolutely,
anything to
bring
prove.
LSU
So
there.
from that perspective, Ole Miss, Tennessee would be that's the best SEC matchup that has Tennessee in it, so that we don't see a rematch. But I
Yeah,
guess Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, or Georgia, Ole Miss for that matter. No rematches there.
there you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, my friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.